Yeah. They're getting it on my Route 1.
Yeah,
Oh, really?
I haven't seen any. Yeah, but.
Ready when you are.
Good. Yeah. Missing someone.
Yeah. Rockets.
They're right up on my deck with me.
Oh, my God. They're aggressive.
I see it was fast, but it was child.
Yeah.
All right, but you ran so fast, you would have air dried your hands. All right. I'd like to call the Madison Public Schools Board of Education meeting to order. We're starting a little bit late because we came out late from executive session. My apologies. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first agenda item up is school community session, public participation. I'm gonna check if anyone wants to participate, be free to give your talk.
There's no one.
Buddy, okay, so we won't make you. Better read that whole 2-minute thing. Thank you. All right, next is the superintendent's report, Dr. Cook.
Yes, good evening. Just a brief report tonight. Congratulations to our 214 graduates who completed their time at Daniel Hampton and Madison Public Schools on last Friday. They're off to an impressive list of colleges and universities, military academies, and the workforce. So we wish them well. We know they're well trained and ready to start life beyond Madison Public School. It was a great event, and I congratulate the Daniel Hand administration and faculty. Also last week, we completed 8th grade for a great group of 8th graders that are on to at the high school. Polson had a wonderful stepping forth ceremony last week, and we wish them well, and it was very well attended, and weather cooperated for us at that event as well. In terms of summer construction, we are on schedule. We're very pleased that immediately the next day after school was over, the crews did start at Brown School, and then some of the outside projects as well started really immediately, and that's always great to see, because you have lots of meetings leading up to that, but then to see a large crew show up at Brown that first day was great. So we'll keep the board updated as we go through the summer on those projects that we have going on, but it certainly seemed to be starting off in a good place. And then, as I shared with the board on Friday, we have announced our teacher and paraprofessional of the year. We do this at this time of the year in order for both those individuals to go forward in the state processes. And that's a long process. They do an application to the state, and if they are selected, they get interviewed. But we're thrilled for our 2 staff members, Renee Chin at Ryerson Elementary School, and Kathleen Durkin, also at Ryerson. So as Kelly Spooner said, a clean sweep for the Hill, and we were happy. Both staff members were incredibly surprised and excited about that. And, I think they're great selections to represent Madison in the state processes. We will celebrate them at convocation. Both individuals will have a chance to speak and address the staff at convocation, which is the best part of convocation, in my opinion. So we'll keep the board updated on that, as well as we go through the summer on how they do in the state process. And the only other thing I had on my list was I wanted to share at this point, the administration has no items for our July 11th meeting. So I've shared that with Chairman Klaskin, and that would be something he brings up under board member comments. But at this point, we do not have anything from the administration that needs attention at this point. Thank you.
Very short.
Yeah.
Very short.
I promised that.
Report. Thank you. Yeah, so as Dr. Cook mentioned, with not much to cover on an agenda for July 11th, the thought was to give everyone a break and not hold the July 11th board meeting. We do have some work to finish on superintendent evaluation, so we may have to call a special meeting sometime if we can, before the end of this month, if not, then early July. To finish up that business. And we're just running a little, we got a late start, so we don't, and we're not gonna have July 11th. So just be ready to respond to outreach with your dates of availability, probably for a special meeting.
If we had a special meeting, when we have it,
We could, that could be one of the dates we put forward.
whatever can I have it, unless people. You know. It's already on the books.
That's one idea. Thank you. And then to continue with board member comments, I just point of personal privilege, my youngest daughter just graduated from Dayton Hand High School. I got to hand her diploma. It's a bittersweet time for me because, you know, I've been involved in education in Madison for many years now. You know, I will always continue to look at it with the best interests of the students in mind, even though I won't have a student anymore in the district. But it's such an honor to serve. And it's especially an honor to serve when you're kind of what you're doing impacts your kids as well. So it's bittersweet for me, like I said. And also, I just wanted to mark that we've had another successful year as a district. Thanks to all of our wonderful district staff, from you know, from folks who keep our floors clean on up to Craig and everyone in between. We've just got amazing folks working for us and keeping things on track, and it really was a good year. And that's not easy to accomplish in today's times. And it's not by accident. So thank you to everyone who cares for our kids so well. Any other board member comments? Stephen?
I'd just like to comment on the Polson activity and the graduation, and that, that was so reflective of our district and how student-centered it was. Both events, the high school graduation, so much of it was student leadership, and, they managed the event largely. So I thought, that makes a statement about what we value. I just thought it was well done.
Anyone else? Okay. All right. Moving on to audience response to information presented. Do we have any audience to respond? Online? No. Okay. Consent agenda. There are line item transfers as of June 20th and budget expenditures as of June 20th that you will have seen in our board packet. We need a motion to approve the consent agenda. So moved by Steve,
Second.
seconded by Emily. Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries 8-0. Thank you. Now we move on to our board committee and liaison updates. Curriculum and student development. Stephen, anything there?
Excuse me, we have not met since our last meeting, so no report.
Thank you. Facility, Emily.
Yes, the facilities committee met last week, Tuesday, June 13th. Mr. McMinn gave updates on summer projects, as you heard from Dr. Cook. Things basically, as soon as school got out, projects got started. The Brown School project started last week, the Folsom Locker projects, the Folsom tennis courts, Folsom door hardware will be replaced this summer. The rooftop unit at the high school was fixed. You'll all be glad to know. Green Hill campus directional signs were getting going. Otherwise, they're working on getting the RFP and approvals for the facility storage building. You might recall that came up in a previous meeting. We'll be working on reviewing the CIP coming up. They're planning for the Brown scope of work beyond this summer, so a lot of work wants to get done during the summer when the students are away, but Bill's working on what that scope of work's gonna look like the summer ends. Funding is in place for the design of the baseball field, and funding is in place for the design and planning of the other Daniel Hand rooftop units. This is all in addition to all the summer maintenance, general updates, repairs, and cleaning that happens at all the schools. The high school stage lighting project should have started this week. And Bill was confident that materials would be ready in time, work would be done by the fall. They selected a firm, the BL firm, for the Polson heating and ventilation project. They're working on the best way to make the improvements, HVAC updates and modernization. We spent some time talking about sort of a standard variable refrigerant system. I don't want to go into a lot of detail because it's sort of, and whether or not it's compatible. It is compatible with geothermal. Sort of left the meeting wanting to know a little bit more about what it would look like to include the geothermal option. This was beyond the scope of the project budget. We always discuss it, and if we did geothermal, it would be an additional cost. So Bill's going to keep us posted on what that would look like in the numbers. The emergency generator, Bill's getting started on that. That is funded by the town entirely. It is a lengthy process. He gave us an update on trash bids. Contract will go to Schweitzer, that was the low bidder. We did not have any public comment, and that was the extent of our meeting, so.
I have a question. So is it true that money has been taken away from Polson? In other words, I was at a town meeting and they said that there was money going to be taken away from the repairs.
No, let me,
So maybe it's.
yeah, let me explain that, because that's really, yeah, so. As you know, as everybody knows, costs have gotten like crazy due to supply chain issues and inflation. They're way higher than what we anticipated when the referendum was passed. That's not even why it's a little bit over. The real reasons why it's over is so that we can get some additional things that need to be planned into the project that are necessary, because we actually have growing enrollment, and also because we want to have a sustainable HVAC system. So, but we are expecting additional reimbursements, and what we can't do is spend more affirmatively on the front end of the project than what we, by referendum, agreed to borrow, right? In bonded funds, we can't spend more in bonded funds on the project. The town can find other money, right, and use a cash management shell game to pre-fund some of that stuff through special appropriation with money on hand that the town has available. And then the town will be more than reimbursed when the project gets reimbursed.
What
Right.
does that mean?
So what it means is there's a couple different ways. We can't spend more than what the Polson project, we can't spend more than what the bonding was approved for. But within the school's renewal project, which involves 3 different schools, we can move money around and take money from this one, put it toward that one, as long as we don't go over the overall budget. The Polson project, we got very good news from the construction folks that it's not going to cost as much as we thought. And if we stick with the standard HVAC system that we always figured we would get at Polson, without spending extra, we end up with almost $5 million extra that we won't need to spend on Polson, while still doing everything to Polson that was planned. So we're not shortchanging Polson at all. And we're able to take that $5 million, move it over to the new school project. That closes the gap by $5 million approximately. In addition to that, we have to wait and see how the bids come in, there are some things that, we learned at the last meeting that the building committee kind of voted to put as alternates, bid alternates. So some of the bidders might say, in order to get the bid, I'm gonna sweeten the deal by saying, oh, that optional item, I'll also do that. Right, and I'm gonna bid that as part of my project, and so we may end up getting some more stuff that was alternate on the new school. And then there's two big things for the new school that are gonna cost money up front that were not anticipated at the time of the referendum, that we can use special appropriation to pay for, that again will be more than reimbursed through the reimbursements that
So you don't foresee that we will have to have a referendum.
the town leadership is very optimistic that there will not need to be a referendum. There will need to be a couple or a special appropriation to cover a couple things that will go to town meeting and we'll have a vote. But that's using appropriated funds, not bonded funds, right? And again, when the reimbursements come in, that money will be reimbursed to the town. And we will end up we're not gonna end up in a situation where the town is looking back at the new school the way we look back at the high school 20 years ago and said, what were we thinking? We got shortchanged, and
Where's the?
every school's gonna get everything that we anticipated. And we're gonna come in within the bonding package, and we're gonna get money back through reimbursements from the feds and the state on the HVAC system at the new school. And we're also gonna get additional money back in that additional $6 million that we were just awarded in additional reimbursement. So long story short, there's a little bit of a cash management exchange that needs to occur up front in order to make sure that we get the buildings and the improvements that we anticipated when we voted in the referendum. But it's not going to go over budget at all and require extra referendum money to the extent that we're spending more than the referendum dollars. They're appropriated dollars that will be reimbursed more than adequately from the reimbursements that come in. We have about $14 million in expended reimbursements, and the gap is only around $7 million now. That includes 4 new classrooms for the expected. We're getting different reports now, and we're fortunately as a town, it's a good position to be in. When other towns are still losing student enrollment, we're projected to pick up student enrollment. It's a commentary on our vitality as a town, and also that our school district continues to attract people and young families. So we have to, it's going to be a lot cheaper for us to build the 4 additional classrooms onto the new school now than to try and add them later. So the town leaders have all gotten together and they're trying to find a plan to make sure we fund that. That's a couple $1 million, and the upgrade to the HVAC to a geothermal system that in the long run is going to be sustainable and save us more money over the next 30, 40, 50 years of that building's life. And we're going to get like 30% of it reimbursed from federal and state coffers, so that it ends up being less expensive than standard HVAC, but we have to lay out the money first and wait for the reimbursement. So everybody's enthusiastic and excited that we're going to come in with actually excess monies to go back to the taxpayer. It's just temporarily we have to use appropriated funds so that we don't go over our bonded budget. It's a lot. It's very confusing. I hope I boiled it down well. But does anybody else have anything?
One piece I would add, and that was talked about when Adam was here last time from Colliers. All that would happen, we would not be touching any contingency funds that are put aside for the new building. So there's about $5 million in contingency funds that
Construction.
if everything happens as planned, we would have that money available to move back to Polson at the end of the project. But as Seth shared, the first run of the Polson HVAC system, which would bring AC and new heating into the entire building, was less expensive than we were anticipating at this point. And so we are able to move funds within the $89 million project between all three. Brown being such a small portion of it, we didn't even look at that, but the other two projects is what we looked at, and that was considered when the referendum question was drafted.
So everything will be done.
Everything will be done in terms of what was said. Again, as Seth shared, the new building has 4 additional classrooms that were not part of the original scope, and so the town had looked at a different way to be able to fund that through reserve funds. So that's being discussed at this point, because that was outside of the scope of what we had planned. And then also what Colliers has pointed out too, at this point, to remove that wouldn't mean $2.4 million in savings. It mean about $1 million in savings, because the whole building was drafted with those 4 classrooms added, and so it shifts everything around. It would be the same amount of savings as it was costing. Thank you.
So, I mean, we'll,
Yeah,
we'll hear all kinds of stuff, and you just kind of have to keep your. Keep your focus on what's really coming out of the school building committee and the town leadership to understand. How this is actually, yeah. So it's gonna be helpful for, I'm saying to like the viewers and
yeah,
stuff,
no,
make sure to check in once in a while, because. The long and the short of it is, the projects are going very well. We're gonna get what we bargained for, and the taxpayers are gonna get more money back. That can be used to pay down that bond there,
that's what.
or for other costs, and it's a very good scenario.
So just a question,
Yes.
the $5 million savings, is that what we're believing, that there's a $5 million savings? Should I go back to?
Yeah.
Okay, where is that coming from? Just HVAC? Is that, where is that lump sum coming?
$5 million that
Yeah.
I spoke to, that was the contingency on the new building, the new construction. So they, any construction, as you can imagine, different scope too, would have some contingency funds
Yep.
available to it. This is there that if they hit slate and they have to do, more, foundation work, that would be available. to them. So you don't touch it now.
Yeah.
It's for construction
Okay,
emergency,
yeah.
but if you get to the end of the project, there's no construction.
No, okay,
Then that's another $5 million.
moving on,
Yes,
yes.
thank you. And no other questions for Emily? Thank you, Emily. Yes, okay. Finance Committee, Galen.
All right, thank you, Seth. The Finance Committee met at 5:30 last Tuesday. Emily and I were in attendance. Seth was ex officio. Can't pronounce that, sorry. Dr. Cook and Stacey Nova's Finance Director were there. We had a short agenda. It consisted of status of projected available funds and line item transfers as of June 13th. The projected available funds were $15,546. That number may go up as things trickle in. If we have surplus of funds, the administration would like us to prioritize the requests for a few items such as the Jeffrey Mapp Bridge, Polson PE wellness equipment, John Deere tractor or something for facilities. And then more money for rooftop units at hand if necessary. We moved that a recommendation of the full board that it authorized finance committee chair to close out the 2022-23 fiscal year directly with the finance director. And I believe that's on our agenda.
Yes.
There were no questions, and the meeting was adjourned at 5:40.
Any questions? for finance? Seeing none, thank you, Galen. Personnel Committee, Maureen.
Personnel committee hasn't met, so they can report to them.
Okay, thank you. Policy Committee, Diane, you're on.
policy met on June 13th. We discussed the following policies for rescission. You will see them as action items on the agenda this evening to waive the second reading and rescind tonight. And the first policy is 4216 instructional paraprofessionals and its associated regulation, Form 1. If you look in your packet, you'll see Shipman and Goodwin notes on the policies. They recommended that we rescind the policy. The regulation was forwarded for informational purposes. Dr. Cook says we do not use this form, that HR has a different form, so that he would rescind, I guess, that regulation as well. But that is not something that we vote on, but we would be voting on a rescission at 4216. And policy 5090.4.3, computers, websites, and pages. We already adopted the acceptable use policy recommended by Shipman and Goodwin on June 6th. So the committee voted that we forward this to the board this evening to waive the second read and recommend rescission. Policy 5100.7, contests for students. The committee voted to forward it for recommending for rescission because the contests for students is handled by the administration on a building basis, so there's no need for a policy. Policy 5110.3, probation, police, and courts. The committee looked at the notes, they recommend rescission. And so you'll find that as an action item this evening as well to waive the second read and rescind. Policy 5180, annual notification of Board of Ed policies and regulations. This is actually required by state law, and the Madison Public Schools does this annually. We don't require a policy for this, so the committee recommended to waive the second read and rescind tonight. Then we discussed the following policies for rescind and replace. Policy 4141, social media, formerly social networking. Minimal changes were made to this policy, so we recommended to forward to the board for this evening to waive the second read and rescind and replace tonight. Then policy 4020, tutoring by staff members. There were minimal changes also made to this policy, so we were recommending that we leave the second read and rescind and replace this evening. Then we have policies that are up for a second read tonight. Policy 9540.9 minutes, 9540.10 meeting conduct. You'll see the notes in your packet. At the policy meeting, we also discussed bunch of 9000 series. We made recommendations to make changes, and those are in your packet, I believe, for a first read this evening. I do want to make note of the fact that all of the first reads this evening are 9000 series, so they are their bylaws. And the last one specifically is 9600. We recently reviewed this and did a rescind and replace. However, I brought it back to our committee to discuss changing it because in order to change a bylaw, it only recommended a majority vote of quorum. And since we changed the rest of the bylaws to be more consistent, it should really be a 2/3 vote. So you'll just want to draw your attention to that wording when you review the policy. And it's only a first read tonight, it's not an action item. Let's see. And that's it. So we adjourned at 7:22. And that's the end of the report. If anyone has any questions about action items or anything in the policy exhibit this evening, I would be happy to try to answer your questions.
Questions for policy?
I, as always, appreciate all the work that the committee is doing, and the notes are really helpful in the packet.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Good work, Diane. Thank you. Learn liaison, Mary Ann.
We met June 8th. Dr. Cook came for breakfast. And then he left.
Is that
Then and this is our final meeting. It was good breakfast.
That was excused.
That's. This was our final meeting, so it just a synopsis of the whole year. We also had went into executive session and we approved our executive director, voted for an increase in salary. and an outstanding job performance. We extended her contract another year to a 3-year. She's actually very good. And basically that was it. They just talked about budget. Their budget was provided some additional funding for education and some language revision. It's a shocking.
Any questions? No, thank you very much. All right, now we come to the part of the meeting with a bunch of action items. The first one, I'm just going to preface by saying this is a motion to approve the performing arts curriculum, K-12, the mathematics curriculum, grade 7, mathematics, and grade 8 pre-algebra, and the wellness curriculum for select courses K-12. And this was studied in detail with a major presentation to the curriculum committee last month, and then at the last meeting on June 6th, I believe, we had another presentation that was a little bit shorter because it was to the full board on this, and so now we need to vote to adopt those new curricula. So I need a motion to approve the performing arts curriculum, K-12, mathematics curriculum, including grade 7 mathematics and grade 8 pre-algebra, and the wellness curriculum, select courses K-12. So moved. Stephen.
I'll
And
second that.
seconded by Emily. Thank you. Discussion. I would like to say that from sitting through the presentation to the curriculum committee and to the board, it's unbelievable the work that's been done. Not only on the academics, but also incorporating throughout all these different curricula, social emotional learning enhancements and supports. And it's just, our curriculum cycle and the way, it's run, it was developed and run by Gail and overseen by Dr. Cook. It's an amazing thing. It takes so much input from all the teachers. They even get input from the students. And it's, we are the envy of many towns in Connecticut for the work that goes into this stuff. And we should be very proud, not only of this particular curriculum in each of these areas, but for the work, we're supporting to add social emotional learning to all of the curricula. So I'm in favor of this, if you can tell.
Yeah.
I would just like to ask the student about that curriculum committee if you are wholeheartedly supporting this.
If I
Are wholeheartedly supporting this.
I am totally supporting it, and, I'd like to add, through this process. For the performing arts, and it's also happened. Around the visual arts, feedback from the committee went to the curriculum designers, so. The initial presentations were not accepted, they went back and did further work over time, so. In addition to being outstanding, it's also been very responsive to the expectations of the board for, high level.
Thank you for that information. I would just like to make one comment regarding the performing arts. It's just that because like our vibe is a graded course and it's part of our curriculum, I would just like to in the future discuss how we are monetarily funding it.
We brought that up at the.
I know we did. But as a board, I think that it needs to be discussed on a financial level, and that's my only comment.
All right, well, I can't disagree that we ought to at least take up the discussion and see what we can do to be supportive. But as a Vibe alumni parent, I'm very proud of that program as well, and the program gets expensive, so we
No, I understand that.
we have to be mindful of supporting it, but
Right, but
in a reasonable
band
way.
and
Yeah.
orchestra, all of those are part of the curriculum, they're graded courses. And they do receive funding for
Yeah.
instruments and strings, et cetera, and so I just want to make sure that. As we support all of our performing arts, if there is some funding that we can provide, because it is a graded course, it's not a club.
Yep.
That we should. That's my only-
I agree with you. Thank you, Diane.
Let's vote.
So, all right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries 8-0. Thank you. All right, action item 10, motion to approve a $11,300 donation to Ryerson Elementary School from the Ryerson PTO to fund 2023-2024 enrichment experiences and field trips. Can I get a motion? It's from Diane, thank you.
Second.
Second from Maureen, thank you. Any discussion?
Thank you very much, the Ryerson PTO.
My goodness, that's generous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For excellent fundraising.
That's great. That's great. Thank you. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries 8-0. Thank you. Action item 11, motion to approve the Finance Committee Chair to authorize the closeout of the 22-23 school year directly with the Finance Director. This was discussed during the finance report. And this is something we did last year. We've all had reports along the way. We know it essentially where the finances are and where they're going to come in. We've had a lot of input into it. I think it's a good practice to continue to have Galen be able to just work out the final details with Stacy. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
So moved.
Yeah, I need a push. So, all right, so Mary Ann, seconded by Emily, thank you. Sorry, I was getting ahead of myself. So all that stuff I said before the discussion, that goes now in the discussion. All right, so any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, aye. All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries 8-0. Thank you. All right, now I need a motion to wait. Okay, these are the action items related to the policy committee report. I need a motion to waive the second reading and to rescind the following policies. 4216 instructional paraprofessionals, 5090.4.3 computers and websites and web pages, 5100.7 contests for students, 5110.3 probation/police/courts, 5180 annual notification of Board of Education policies and regulations.
So
Moved by Diane, seconded by Maureen. Thank you. Any discussion on waiving the second reading so we can rescind these tonight? No, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. It looks like the ayes have it, 8-0. Another policy action item, I need a motion to waive the second reading and approve the following policies. 4141 social networking and 4020 tutoring by staff members.
So
Diane, seconded by Marie. Any discussion on those? Any questions, discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, aye. All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries 8-0. Thank you. I need a motion to approve the following policies after their readings. 9540.9 minutes, 9540.10 meeting conduct.
so moved.
Diane, second. By
This is how it's done.
We should have given someone else a chance. We're running out of that. There's no-
any discussion or questions? Seeing none, all in favor, aye. All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries 8-0. Now we get on to the minutes from the last meeting. I needed a motion to approve the minutes of the June 6th, 2023 Board of Education meeting. So moved, Steve. Do I have a second?
Second,
That was Diane.
yeah.
Any discussion and amendments requested or anything? Seeing none, all in favor of passing minutes from 6, aye, opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion passes 8-0. Thank you. All right, now we have an agenda item that was requested by a board member. And this is to discuss paper towels at the Daniel Hand High School, in the Daniel Hand High School bathrooms. Diane, please.
So I'd just like to say that, you all know this is near and dear to my heart. However, I don't believe that this is even like a line item budget to be voted on and approved. This is about normal supplies at the high school. TCLC, the elementary schools, the middle school, they all have paper towels. Daniel Hand has some paper towels in the single-use bathrooms, in the administrative and faculty bathrooms, but not in the main student bathrooms. And so I don't I feel that that is not equitable, it is not fair. And I think that if you think about it in a logical and reasonable manner, you know, you spill something on your shirt, you want to go clean it off in the bathroom, oh, you can't. Every time I've gone into that high school, except for when I help get it ready for Night in Hand, at least 2 of 3 hand dryers and bathrooms were not working. Now, I don't blame facilities for that. I think if they don't know about it, they can't fix it. And to my knowledge, and I'm gonna bring it up in facilities, that maybe we need to have some sort of system in place where students can say, fill out a form or submit something saying, hey, this is not working, so that they can be made aware so it can be fixed. But in the meantime, there's no backup system. So we're really encouraging students to not wash their hands or to use their clothing to dry their hands. And that's not right. It's not clean, it's just. And I have to say also that, you know, visiting sports teams come into our school and they're all shocked that we don't have paper towels. We have these lovely brand new dispensers in the women's bathrooms for personal sanitary items, which is wonderful, but we don't have paper towels. And I think, you know, if Bill McMinn came and said, look, we need a little bit more money for facilities because maybe they're using more toilet paper, or maybe they need more cleaning supplies. It's not a line item thing to vote on. He would just say, I need more money for supplies, and we would be like, okay, because that's what we need, that's what we use, and the cost has gone up. And so I think that as a board, we should recommend and say that we're putting paper towels back in all the bathrooms in every school, and to make sure that the new facility as well has paper towels. Keep the hand dryers in, it's an option, but when they don't work, there's no backup. And I don't think it's right to not listen to our students. We're over half, and not all of them were even, you know, polled, but over half wanted paper towels back. And that's my spiel. So I would like the board to support putting paper towels back in every bathroom, in every school.
So I want to personally thank Diane's daughter, who actually did a study on this and presented it to the facilities committee and the board quite last year. And my understanding is that the counter to this point is that a student-led environment club or
That's not
environment
debunked.
related,
It no longer exists.
had initiated the concept of getting rid of the paper towels to save trees and lobbied for getting the dryers put in. So that's been the counter. I have to say that I've had an evolution in my thought on this subject. And maybe it's because of the withering attacks from Diane and the tenacity. But I kind of feel like, you know, maybe if we, and it may cost a few cents more, but if we can use recycled
They are, all of our paper towels.
paper towels,
Everything
that
is recycled.
that could help to address the environmental issue. And to my mind, I'm persuaded by some of the arguments that Diane's daughter and Diane raised. So that's just where I am on it now. But any other comments or discussion?
I think it's a good idea, small change that can have large positive effects.
Steve?
My original position on this. Let me make it just. Sorry. My original position on this was from the standpoint of having environmental, earth friendly approach. You know, the paper towels ending up in landfills and trees and so forth. And initially, the data and the things I was getting is that it was pretty much, from a health standpoint, equivalent, whether you're using dryers or towels. I researched it further in advance of this conversation. And I think it's time to change for these reasons. The data that I saw is strongly in favor of paper towels from a health perspective. That the blowers do not dry the hands unless you use them for 30 seconds or more, which you all know kids are not going to do. So 80% of the bacteria that is spread, according to the research, is through the hands, and wet hands are worse. You know, the only thing that is equivalent to paper towels at this point are the blowers that are like super blowers that within 10 seconds can dry your hands, which I don't believe we have. You know, so, you know, what I've read, what is recommended for hospitals and schools is the paper towels, which are very effective in drying and removing bacteria better than the blowers are. So, you know, I think that has to continue to be our priority, which is the health and safety of everyone. And if everything was equal, then I'd say, you know, no need for a change, and it means more work for folks, but things are not, based on what I'm reading, they're not equal.
And can I ask you what you read or where you got your information?
There were several, I mean, if you
I know.
go online and you search it,
Five
I
things.
mean, there were like 3 or 4 articles that I read that were a review of research studies, so I felt like it was, you know, it was pretty, it wasn't one isolated, it was pretty comprehensive. So,
Also, when Jacqueline sent the entire board her email, it included all of the references. So the research was there.
so I, you know, also feel there have been advances. I mean, there were like 10 different varieties of earth-friendly, sustainable paper towels, you know, so, you know, I think we can serve both goals, but I think that, you know, it is a significant health advantage to using the paper towels. The last point, which is, I mean, it's important to me, but from the standpoint of a district, wouldn't be necessarily the decider, but I think it's really important that kids' voice and the fact that a young person came to this board and made a comprehensive presentation is something to consider, you know, in our choices as well.
But wasn't it another group that wanted to get the
It was an environmental club.
environmental club, wanted to put them in? Yeah,
It was quite some time ago.
no, but I was.
And it- and it's added-
Metal Club wasn't sustainable.
But that was quite a while ago, and data has changed since then.
Right.
And I did speak with Bill McMinn, and all of the paper towels that we use in our district are recycled paper towels. And recycled paper towels also break down easier and faster and more efficiently in landfills. Also, Bill McMinn said that when you order paper towels, they give you the dispensers for free. And when I inquired about, you know, well, you know, staff would then have to put them up, he's like, that's nothing, that's not even, it's negligible. And they're already emptying trash bins in the rest of the bathrooms with paper towels.
Does Polson has paper towels? Okay, so Ava is a junior along with Diane's daughter as well.
Senior, they're senior now.
Yeah, we just admit that. And she does tiger tutors at Polson. And she goes into the bathroom and it is a disaster in there with paper towels. It is an absolute mess. They're scattered all around. And she said she's done every Thursday, Tuesday, it's just a mess. and they can't keep up with it. So that's my concern, is that it's just, they take a paper towel or two or three and they don't throw it in the pail, they throw it on the ground and it just becomes a complete mess and it's double work for whoever's cleaning it up, which causes more germs, I think, to pick, you know, I mean, I don't know, I'm just saying that it becomes a mess. I just pulled up the notes, so when Jacqueline presented to the facilities committee in November, I just was looking at my notes from that. And yeah, Bill shared the history with us at that time, the Daniel Hannon Environmental Club had petitioned to remove the paper towels. They fundraised, they bought the units. Their petition was to save the paper and to save the waste. Hand dryers save time, money, and I know things have changed, but I just want to give the context. Hand dryers save time, money, and mess. Paper on the bathrooms can be a mess. Bill said during COVID, they put paper towels back in all the bathrooms.
And disabled.
And some single stall restrooms still have paper towels. So as Bill said, and for the facilities committee, what I don't know, we're supposed to take action on this, so like I would like to bring it back to Bill and get like the full cost and the estimates, because he had said the cost of the papers is something, I have in my notes, cost of the papers is significant and there's still waste. He said papers are a nice thing to have, it comes at an expense. And in my notes, he wrote, it's a balance of student preference, cost, impact. In an ideal world, he said, you'd have both if you have the money. So from the facilities committee perspective, I don't feel comfortable, I don't know if we're expected to make a decision right now, but I would want to have a meeting with Bill's impact, you know, with his input, and I know you've spoken with him, but I'd like to hear from him again now, several months later, what this would look like in terms of the waste, cost.
I guess my point is, if we're doing it at the other schools, why are we not doing it at him?
I'd like to, I mean, that's something we can talk about in a committee meeting, I suppose,
And
too, right?
also find out if there was ever an issue with the custodians in the high school, with any, you know, papers getting put where they shouldn't be or in toilets.
Why would it be any different at the high school than at the other schools?
I do.
It could be.
If I could jump in, I did talk to Bill, you know, knowing this was on, it's still $13,000, that's holding steady. And the reason Polson does not have hand dryers is they don't have the power to the areas of the bathroom. That was in the plan. He did say though, because I you know, I asked him about the history. Typically, high school is better than middle school. That's my experience as well. You know, to Christine's point, you know, I think middle school students are more likely maybe to throw towels on the floor than a high school students. I think high school students are better about that. There are as Diane shared, the dispensers are free. I've looked at some other dispensers that actually have the garbage container attached to it. And I wonder if that would be better utilized, whereas you're taking the towel, wiping, and you have that garbage right there. So that could be something to investigate. We'll take whatever direction the board has on this. I don't know that it needs a formal vote, but and I don't think the lead time is significant either, you know, because we have paper towels, so it's something you push off to August. We can still address it, you know, either before school or early into school.
But I also think that, you know, we need to find a way for the students to be able to report the not working hand dryers. I mean, obviously, we're not gonna take them out, but when they don't work, they have no alternative.
But sometimes
And-
the paper towels are not in there. I've been in schools where paper towels have been empty too. I mean, somebody needs to address that. When the custodians go in and make sure everything is working, make sure there were paper towels around.
Yeah, we could have a general student reporting process for any bathroom issue, like
Yeah.
a clogged toilet, you know, out of paper
It's like, you know,
towels.
a teacher has a computer problem, they open a trouble ticket, and
Yeah.
so some sort of,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know, system in place, because you can't fix something if you don't know if it's broken. And quite frequently from what I've heard and what I have also experienced in high school is that the majority of the hand dryers are broken. And that is.
Well, that should be.
That's something we should ask facilities about, and perhaps they should test on a regular basis.
How much does it cost us to get something like that?
I think It would depend, I guess, if it's whole unit or something like that, I'm not sure.
All right, so let's not belabor this further. We're not gonna vote on it tonight, I guess, but
We can bump it to facilities.
why don't Emily, if you'll take that up as a matter for facilities, then we could review it further and.
Yeah.
Decide what action we want to take, if any, as a board.
Got it.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you. Thanks, Diane. All right, any future agenda items that anybody wants to raise?
Well, but I need to talk to you
Okay,
before.
like offline, we can talk about it, the question you may have. Okay, that's fine, thank you. Our meetings and dates of importance are attached, although I will remind everybody. That we just decided we're not gonna have a regular meeting on July 11th. We may have a special meeting, so stay tuned. And we have some potential action items that involve personnel contract matters for central office staff. And the superintendent, but we're not ready to vote on those yet. So we're going to bypass those. And I need a motion to hang on 1 second.
Are we going into executive session?
Yeah, I need a motion to enter executive session for the purpose of meeting with the superintendent regarding a central office staff contract matter and evaluation, and also to continue our discussion about evaluating the superintendent.
So moved.
That's Diane.
I
And
second.
do I have a second? All right, second by Mary Ann. Thank you both. Any discussion? Motion to, or let me hear advice for going into executive session. Opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Nothing. Thank you. There are no